In 1998, the Congress passed, and then President Bill Clinton signed into law the International Religious Freedom Act, which, among other things, elevated the importance and the priority of the promotion of religious freedom in America's foreign policy. The law was recently amended to be given even greater influence and significance in international religious freedom and our activity, and its name was changed to the Frank R. Wolf International Religious Freedom Act to honor our next guest, former Virginia Congressman Frank Wolf. Congressman, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you, Tony. Good to be with you.
Now, Congressman, early on in your career, you worked to assist Christians in Romania who were being persecuted by that country's dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu. That work involved removing most favored nation status from Romania as a consequence for their behavior. We were just talking about that with Senator Lankford about the connection of economic activity and religious freedom. Can you talk a little bit about how that experience shaped your interest in religious freedom and human rights in Congress?
That shaped it tremendously, but before, can I say this? I appreciate Senator Lankford's efforts. If every senator were like Senator Lankford, I think it'd be a lot differently. Secondly, read Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail. It is one of the most powerful things you will ever read. The trip with me on the trip was current Congressman Chris Smith, who was a hero, and Congressman Tony Hall. We went to Romania in 1985. I had almost never been out of the country. I think I'd been to Canada once before I got elected to Congress. It was a life-changing event. We went into churches, Second Baptist Church, a variety of people came up and put things in my hands, and my husband's in jail, my son's in jail. Ceausescu was one of the most evil people. It was darker in Bucharest than it was in Moscow. We came back, we got ridiculed by the Ways and Means Committee, and we had one guy with us. The Reagan administration wanted to keep most favored nation status, but one man named Ronald Reagan wanted to take it away. We met with President Reagan, and the story is we took it away, and President Reagan helped us. One person, Reagan said the words in the Declaration of Independence and the words in the Constitution were a covenant, not only with the people in Philadelphia in 1776 and 1787, but a covenant with the entire world. So Reagan really went against his own Secretary of Commerce, and we took it away, and it helped collapse the Ceausescu administration.
But from there, it went on to the Soviet Union.
We did in 1989. Chris Smith and I went to Moscow, and we asked to go into Perm Camp 35. That was the camp that Sharansky was in. I've met with Sharansky a number of times. Sharansky said when he heard Ronald Reagan, they used to tap on the wall with spoons, when he heard Ronald Reagan give 1983 National Association Evangelical speech in Florida, where he called the Soviet Union what? The evil empire. It changed everything. We went in, it was in summer of 89, we went into the Shizo. We took people out. We interviewed Sharansky's cellmate, who Sharansky had since left. Remember, Sharansky got out, and there was a trade. He was on the Gliniken Bridge, remember, in Berlin, and they told him to walk straight, and he zigzagged back and forth. A strong man, Sharansky. Literally, we found that amazing things were happening, and the people there knew more about Reagan because of him speaking out. But it was, again, a life-changing experience. Perm Camp 35 in the Ural Mountains, Gulag. We stayed through the night. Chris Smith and I, we gave out Bibles, and three of the men that we met with, the first man came up to me, he said, I work for your government. And I came back with the CIA, and they finally, these were three guys who've been working for us, who were put in the Gulag, and our government had even neglected. But that was, again, a life-changing trip. Again, Chris Smith. God bless. We want Chris Smith to stay in Congress till he was 150 years old. But Chris was with me on that trip.
We're up against a break. We're going to come back and continue this conversation because I want to ask, with the perspective that you have, having served in Congress all of these years, going back to the Soviet Union, going back to Romania, these incidents that you just relayed to us. Where is religious freedom today? Is the population of the world better protected when it comes to religious freedom, or is religious freedom in greater risk today than it has been in the last 40 or 50 years?
Greater risk. We don't have the same. We had Henry Hyde. You remember Henry? We had Jack Kemp, who would get up on the floor with passion. We had Tom Lantos. They're all gone. I think we have 5.5 billion people living under a religiously repressive nation. From 80 to 81 to 88, if any law firm in this set town said they're going to represent the Soviet Union, Reagan would have cracked down on them. Squires, Patton, Boggs, have you looked at their list? They represent Sudan. They represent Bashir, who is an indicted war criminal. And yet you have the most powerful law firm in the city represent. They represent China. In China, you have Tibetans in jail. I snuck into Tibet. The Buddhists are being persecuted. The Uyghurs are being persecuted. Catholic priests in jail. Catholic bishops in the house arrest. It is worse off because we don't have the leadership then and now that we really have.
Are you hopeful that we may be at a point of change?
I am.
We're gonna take that up on the next when we come back. Folks, don't go away. We're coming back in just a moment with more Washington Watch. Let me encourage you, check out the website, TonyPerkins.com. Also, you can watch on Facebook as well. So don't go away. We're coming back with more of our conversation with Congressman Frank Wolf on the other side of this break. And let me remind you, this is a special edition of Washington Watch as we observe National Religious Freedom Day, a very important day. And I'm going to ask Congressman Wolf about this as well. Relatively new, going back to 1993, the first time that a president issued a proclamation declaring Religious Freedom Day. So we're going to talk about that and more when we return with this special edition of Washington Watch. Welcome back to this special edition of Washington Watch, here before a live audience at the Media Center at the Family Research Council here in Washington, D.C. My guest, former Congressman Frank Wolf of Virginia, the author of the initial International Religious Freedom Act back in 1998. I want to continue our conversation, Congressman. You were talking about what is happening in terms of religious freedom and how so many people are living under repressive governments today. Are you optimistic that we could be at a turning point, that change may be on the horizon? One of the bill was amended, the act was amended to be called the Frank R. Wolf International Religious Freedom Act to impartially strengthened to make the ambassador at large for religious liberty responding directly to the Secretary of State. So there has been some action. Are you hopeful under this administration we may see relief to those being persecuted for their faith around the globe?
I'm hopeful under the administration, and I think you have to give a lot of credit to the administration, and particularly to Vice President Pence, what he's done on the Iraqi situation. I mean, they've completely reversed it. I mean, so he is putting aid in to help the Christians to remove. Overall, God can do whatever he wants to do. I mean, I pray every night for a spiritual awakening. I have 5 kids. I have 16 grandkids. I've been going around on the college campuses. I'm not that encouraged, though. I got to tell you, when many law firms in this town will take on the most sleaziest, when Patton Boggs takes on an indicted war criminal, you got to wonder where we're going. Secondly, Sam Brownback is one of the greatest guys we could ever have. His nomination has languished there. He was nominated during the summer.
Right.
Republican House, Republican Senate, and he hasn't really gotten confirmed yet. I was encouraged to hear the senator say. Thirdly, Chris Smith's bill, H.R. 309, is languishing in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Chris passed it last June. This will have money to investigate the genocide. I had a young Yazidi girl come by and say that the man who held her in Raqqa was an American citizen who used to show her pictures of his wife and kids on his cell phone. Chris can't get his bill out of the Senate. So, and then lastly, I go on to some of these college campuses, Christian colleges. These kids are really not that interested. So yeah, I think we need some men like Martin Luther King. I think we need pastors to go to jail. I am disappointed in the church. There are exceptions. Cardinal Dolan's been great. There are a lot of exceptions, but overall, the church has fundamentally failed. After the first bill passed, most churches used to have a religious freedom Sunday. They would bring in somebody from Sudan and China. Now they're almost all gone. So I am not that encouraged, but God can move quickly, and maybe the Trump administration and Pence. I mean, Pence is a good guy. I mean, I once sat on the floor and I told Pence, if he ever ran for president, I'd be for him. And so Pence can maybe, but unless there's a change in hearts and minds of the people, and I think the fundamental failure has really been the church. Dietrich Bonhoeffer says, he looked around. If you don't speak, you don't act. And I don't see the church speaking, and I don't see the church acting. That's why I urge you, if anything comes out of this, read Dr. King's letter from my Birmingham jail. Every pastor, priest, and rabbi ought to read that letter. Lastly, have you seen the anti-Semitism around the world? There's anti-Semitism on the American college campuses. This whole boycott, divestiture, and sanctions is soft anti-Semitism. I have not seen any religious leader speak out against it. So God can do it. God can answer a prayer, but I am not that optimistic at this moment.
Well, let's talk then in the few moments we have remaining. What should churches and pastors be doing? What can our listeners do to address this issue? And by the way, this program that is now 5 years on a daily program, in large part went from a weekly to a daily because of a conversation I had with you a number of years ago about needing to get this information out there and into the hands of Christians. So what do they need to do?
Well, and I appreciate what FRC, that one, pray. When you go with the religious dissidents in other countries, you always say, as you leave, what can I do? They say, pray from what else? Yeah. Well, pray.
True.
So you can pray. Secondly, you can work with groups like Voice of the Martyrs and Open Doors. Thirdly, you can contact your congressmen and senators. Have a religious freedom day at church. Invite in different people. I believe this needs to be both a spiritual issue and it also needs to be a political issue. You need to take this into the political environment. I mean, why is Chris Smith's bill being blocked in the Senate? Why is Sam Brownback not? I mean, Brownback was loved by all the senators, so there's a lot that each individual can do. But I think it may really boil down to, and I'll go with them, you really might need to be some pastors and some priests and rabbis to do really what Dr. King did. They may very well have to go to jail to wake up this country. And back to domestic issues. If you're a committed person and you believe a marriage is between a man and a woman, and you work for a high-tech company, and you tell that in the high-tech company you work for hospitality, and you're not going to go very far. So we have some fundamental problems in this country as well as outside.
And we have to lead by example, and that's why we must defend religious freedom at home to give hope and encouragement to those around the globe. And I will echo what you said. As I was recently in Egypt meeting with Christians there, the first thing they said, pray for us. Pray that we will be bold and courageous, not unlike the words of Apostle Paul in Ephesians chapter 6. Congressman, as always, great to have you on the program. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.